live. What's up, mob crew? I hope everybody is doing well. Real quick, if you can hear me okay, please put a 1 in the chat. I had to redo my whole system here because my computer crashed yesterday. I'm just trying to fix this cam here. Just a second. There we go. That'll work for now. All right. So yeah, today we'll be talking about Delphi again. And some evidence that I've read of, but we haven't discussed on this channel before. Obviously, in the thumbnail there was yellow rope that was photographed at the crime scene. Everybody's wondering what that is. I will talk about it. We don't know much about it, but it's something. When it comes to Frank's motion, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. You read through the entire thing, which is pretty big, and there's always something. Like in the cliff notes that you may have read, but then you overlook because there's something else that catches your attention, and then you're like, oh, I want to focus my video on this, and then it's like you go back to it, and then you read it again. It's like, oh my gosh, how come we haven't talked about this? Let's see. Volume's good. One person says low, everybody else is good. So let me just quickly adjust that a little bit. All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you can, please hit that like button. It really helps get this channel out there. And we will get going. I'm going to start a video so I can fix this camera just a little bit. Just the tribute video I did for them since it was the anniversary 2 days ago. So I'm going to do that real quick so I can fix this camera, and then we will get going. So let me make sure that... All right. Okay. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me here. I think I got that just a little bit up. Perfect. Yeah, that looks all right. Sorry, I was playing with my OBS, which is the thing that you use to stream to YouTube, and I was playing with it yesterday, and I broke it, and I couldn't go live yesterday, and looks like it's working much better. All right, let's get going here. Real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Chris with Monsters Under Our Bed. We cover true crime, mystery to the missing. Before each show, we always like to feature the missing, so we're going to quickly do that, and then we'll get into today's show. So today we have someone we featured recently. This is Courtney Lynn Townsend. She was just 32 years old. Brown hair, blue eyes, 4'11", and 110 pounds. She is from my hometown, St. George, Utah. She went missing on November 16th of last year in St. George. She was last seen in her mom's car. The car was found abandoned and burned a few days later in Kane County, Utah. Since then, they have not seen Courtney. If you have any tips or any information, you can call 435-627-4300. Once again, this is Courtney Townsend, 32 years old, went missing November 16th of last year, St. George, Utah. All right, so let's get into it. So it's a video that I've played many times, but I usually add more to it each time we do a live show, and I have done so as well. So this goes over the timeline for anybody that may not be familiar with this case, but I'm sure most of you are. I'm just trying to get the video minimized here. So it's the timeline, and then we'll go through the timeline, and I added some bunch of new stuff for you guys.
Of 2017, two teenage girls, Abby Williams and Liberty German, had made last-minute plans to go to the Monon High Bridge, which was supposed to be a teenage hangout with a historic trail and a really high old abandoned bridge. The two girls, who were best friends, just had a sleepover the night before and were excited when Libby's sister, Kelsey German, said she would drop them off as long as the two girls found a ride home, which they did. Although it was February, the temperature was nice for that day, and even though it was a Monday, they had school off that day. The two girls, Abby and Libby, would be dropped off just before 2 p.m., where they planned on only staying for a couple of hours. The two teens, Abby and Libby, would begin walking the 501 trail to the Monon High Bridge. As the two would approach the bridge, Libby, who had her iPhone, would take two pictures, one as they passed the first platform, and another which shows Abby looking down as she is crossing the scary, tall, gap-filled railroad tie. The girls didn't know it yet, but they were not alone. As a few hours would go by, the father of Libby, Derek German, would show up, but the two girls were not at the meetup spot. Thinking that the two teens just lost track of time, he would end up calling Libby's phone. The phone was ringing, but no one was answering. He would begin searching for the two teens, but when running into other people, no one had seen them. Eventually, the authorities would be called out, and this would lead to a search party looking for the two girls. But sadly, there was no sign of them on that first night of the 13th. With the search being called off late that night for safety reasons, it would be resumed early that next day. They brought in helicopters, divers, and many other resources to scour the area. But just around noon that day, they would soon discover a grisly scene. Authorities would discover the two girls across the river, and both had...
All right, so that's just a recap of the just the story. I see Randy Rogers. Yeah, a lot of people covered this case. A lot of people are interested in it. We do cover other cases on this channel. It's usually rare that I'll do two shows back to back on the same subject, unless it's like, evolving. But yeah, today I don't. The other big one would be the Harmony Montgomery case, but just with how tragic that case is, and there's already tons of channels covering it, just to break down what happened to that girl, even though it's just as bad with these girls, I just have a tough time covering that case because it's just terrible. And anyway, everybody's been watching it earlier today. I figured it's nice to switch it up, and right now there's not a lot of other stuff going on. So anyway, back to this. So here's the timeline, and like I said, I added new stuff for it, and I also put up a poll because I'm just making sure everything's working as good. So I just put up a basic question: do you think Richard Allen is the primary suspect / killer of the two girls? So we'll continue on, and like I said, I added some stuff in here along with the rope and stuff if you haven't heard that, because that is in the Frank's Motion, and we will get to that here in just a minute. But we go to the timeline here, and it starts with the 4 juveniles. 2 of them are sisters. Most of them are, since they're juveniles, they're redacted names. But anyway, they get there at some time before around 12:30. They go to the bridge sometime around 12:43, and then they would walk back to the Freedom Bridge, which is on the left here. They would be approaching sometime around 1:20. We know this for multiple reasons. One is that at 1:26, one of the girls takes a picture of the bench. And then as she's taking a picture, we have what they label is what looks to be a black Ford Focus going west on the Country North 300. And that is at 1:27. It'll be interesting to see how good of quality that video surveillance is. It was 2017. I mean, they still had decent surveillance back then, but we've seen a lot of surveillance in true crime, and a lot of it could be really terrible quality. But we're just looking at a car, not a person, so maybe that may help as far as depending on the quality of the camera. But this is what it would look like if the car was traveling on the 300 North Road. I have to give a huge shout out to Indie Archive. I'm assuming a local to Delphi or around that area. He's got tons of videos. Some of the footage that I use is from his channel, and should be a link in my description. Indie Archive has done amazing drone footage, just kind of the area, the bridge. So it's pretty amazing. He's even done the drive just like this right here, showing just what it'd be like for someone to be driving down that road if you were not local to this area. That camera should have been, assuming it would have been on the face of this building here, and would have probably captured it right about here, just past the tree. It almost looks like you can see where the camera was originally placed. The Hoosier Harv store was originally there back in 2017, but they moved just on the other side of the road, so they're still there. They have moved. That store, they basically go out and fix like silos and different stuff for farming. So this would be going around the corner. And then we'll fast forward here. And this at that same time, the girls would be at the Freedom Bridge. And then assuming that Richard Allen did park at the CPS building, This is what it looked like. Now, obviously, when he went there, the building was gone. I heard that there was like a fire. All I've heard that it was just tore down. Here is footage from February 14th where it shows the building still up. And we can see that there's quite a bit of shrubbery here, which I think he most likely he would have maybe backed up somewhere right here, which I show in the diagram here in a second. Or maybe on the other side, but here is the 3 vehicles that multiple witnesses claim they saw when driving down this road. Melissa says, I don't think it's Richard, but everyone else says it is. I believe it's Richard Allen, but that's just my opinion. If you feel differently, we totally respect that on this channel. We try to stick with, the facts and the evidence that we know. That doesn't mean we know everything on this channel, or there's a lot of unknowns in this case, that's for sure. I feel like we're on Grizzly map time. Yeah, shout out Gizla. She does an amazing map time. And again, this is, I think, in the archive again, walking this. But I thought of something that was kind of interesting, and this will lead into the yellow rope and stuff. If Richard Allen did do this alone and he was trying to abduct a girl, it'd be weird. Why did he park at that old CPS building? Because to abduct a girl from the bridge and then bring her all the way back, which means you would have to cross the creek or come back across the bridge, which would be just as hard not to be caught because you'd be on the trail. So it's kind of twofold, because just for instance, let's say Richard Allen or just the killer itself did park at that old CPS building. Does that mean that that they did not want to abduct a girl, and this was premeditated, and they had no plans to abduct, but just ultimately kill their victim? Because it would have made more sense for the killer to park at the cemetery and then go around and across the bridge and stalk a victim, and then from the bridge take them back from the bridge across the creek to the cemetery. But let me know what you think in the chat. Do you think parking, if we knew for a fact that the killer did park at the old CPS building, does that show intention that he did not want to abduct them or kidnap them, but ultimately kill them? Because it does seem like quite a trek, because you would have to now, if we just look at the overhead here, he would have to go across the creek and then take them across 300 Country North, where obviously there was a suspect seen or person of interest seen at later on at around 3:40. So kind of interesting to think about. But back to the original timeline, the suspect would have then approached around 1:37. And let me get to chat here, or I get to ahead. Equestrian 100, love this channel. Your content is always great. You are very respectful of all, and I appreciate everything you do, and great mods do. Thank you. Yes, my mods are amazing. If you have any questions, just let me know. Do you guys hear typing? You guys don't hear typing, do you? I don't have any other videos going, do I? Okay, sorry. I'm just checking. It's awful. I've been watching it. Yeah, related to the Harmony Montgomery case. Yes, it is very... yeah, I didn't hear about the rope. We will get to the rope here. I promise you guys. We're just going over some of the timeline again, but I did add some new stuff. Okay, you guys don't hear typing, really? Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah, that was something in the video. Melissa, thank you so much for being a member for 8 months now. Great channel. You had me from day one. Thank you, Chris, mods, and everyone. Thank you so much, Melissa. All right. So continuing the timeline, of course, he would pass the 4 juveniles, which would get obviously witness statements from both sides. Which, interestingly enough, we got the original statement from Mr. Allen, which he got from Dan Doolin. Dan Doolin had tracked down, or I think in the Frank's motion, it mentions that Richard Allen contacted somebody and wanted to speak to them because, for whatever reason. And Dan Doolin, a conservation officer, went to a grocery store to meet up with Richard Allen. And that's where we get the original statement. Now, of course, unfortunately, there's no recording of this. This was written down on a notepad or something like that. But there are some statements in here that are very interesting because he mentions he saw 3 females, which is a very specific number. And then he even noted that one was taller and one had brown or black hair. So it'd be very interesting to know, obviously, if you're going to have more than one witness, obviously, unless they're the same height. But, you got sisters, 2 of them are sisters. So I'm assuming, you're going to have one that's taller than the other. But he did not speak to them. And he saw them at the Freedom Bridge, which corresponds with what the witnesses said, that they saw a guy walking past. So it's very interesting that there are, even though what little that we know of his statement, there are some things that line up. Now, of course, he said that he was there from 1:30 to 3:30, but apparently that changed after he was arrested, which we'll talk about. One of the things that was really interesting that we mentioned before is one of the girls, which I think was one of the younger sisters, is that right after this incident, she told her mom about a guy that had recently been arrested. This guy here in the middle. She said to her mom that the suspect she saw on February 13th looked like this guy. And interestingly enough, it looks just like Richard Allen. I don't like what's happening with the judge. I agree. I think the judge is a huge distraction, and I really, my opinion, I wish they would just get another judge, just so there isn't that history, because I think there's always going to be tension now that we have this history. Then we have one of the biggest witnesses, in my opinion, which is going to be Betsy Blair. It's stated that Betsy Blair was returning to the trails to finish her walk, which is very interesting. We talked about this before, the way that's worded, almost like she was coming back. She also knows it's clear that she's been to this area before, because she knows that it's odd because she had saw a Ford Comet, what looked like a Ford Comet or Mercury Comet, parked at the old CAPS building. But I doubt the killer would be driving such a rare car that could be identified, and so it's possible maybe that car, maybe it's somebody that just parked there for a minute in between everything that was going on. And so she did see this car, even though the Ford Focus was there as well. Maybe this person just happened to park there for a minute. Obviously, we can only speculate. Yeah, cemetery is interesting. It's right there. Right. You would think if it was a kidnapping, you've got a lot of, you got quite a bit to hike. And, I mean, just looking at this overview right here, As we have Betsy Blair approaching the mayor's parking lot, we have Richard Allen, who's going to be, or the suspect, approaching the bridge. But yeah, we can see with this overhead view, if he was going to kidnap somebody, I mean, he's got quite a bit to hike all the way back to this CPS building. Really odd. Thank you, Anna. I have a passion for this. There's many great content creators that cover Delphi, and they do an amazing job. Matter of fact, there's going to be one covering Delphi on the hour, not this hour, but the next hour, which is Steve from True Crime Web. As a matter of fact, as soon as this live ends, if you're interested, it'll link you and take you over to his channel. He is a former forensic detective. We've worked together. Amazing guy if you haven't seen his channel. And he will be covering Delphi as well. So we will be talking about the rope here in just a minute. We don't know a lot about it, but I will show you guys here in just a bit. I just wanted to get the timeline and get to that point. Now this is where Betsy Blair, she passes... she approaches the bridge, and Richard Allen, or the suspect, is on the bridge. Oh, did I go a little too far? Yeah. So Betsy Blair would be walking down, and so this would be the killer's point of view. He would be probably approaching the bridge at about 1:49, 1:50 p.m., and shortly behind him, and at the same time, you would have the two victims being dropped off. So you kind of have both Betsy Blair, who would be probably approaching the bridge, and the girls now just approaching the 501 trail. According to Richard Allen's statement, he went to the first platform. He was going to look at fish, which is kind of an odd statement because it is very muddy water. I think you could still kind of see because it's not very deep, but I don't know, just an odd statement in my opinion. But here's his original statement. But he claimed that he walked out to the first platform. And here is the statement below by the witness, Betsy Blair. She advised that the male that she saw was wearing a blue jeans and blue jacket. She advised he was standing on the first platform. So those two match up, which is very interesting. She said he was approximately 50 feet from him. She advised she went to the beginning of the bridge and then turned around. Betsy Blair is the person who is responsible for this sketch here, and even an interview before almost the 2-year anniversary, because the original sketch, the other sketch, was out for the first 2 years. She felt like that sketch did not accurately represent who she saw, and so there's mention of an interview with her, Betsy Blair. And shortly after that is when we would have the famous press conference with Doug Carter and them releasing the young guy sketch. Now, there is something that was mentioned by our members or our viewers. I thought it was very interesting that I never even thought about. Now, obviously, many... have different views on what he was wearing. In my opinion, it looks like a short brown blue bill hat. Some think there's no hat. Some think it's his hoodie over there. But in my opinion, I think it's a short brown bill hat. But what's interesting is that she said that his hair seemed poofy and it was brown. If he was far away enough, here's a picture, and I can pull this one up so it's a little bit closer. Where's this guy at? I have him in this one. I've got so many folders. It's not in this one. Anyway, but here's a picture from somebody taking a picture at the beginning of the bridge, and he's close to platform 1, and it's really hard to make out. Now, obviously, it's a picture, so we can't obviously accurately portray be standing there and seeing somebody from 50 feet away, but it's definitely possible that she could have mistaken this brown bill for brown curly hair. I've heard a couple people mention that on this channel, and I thought that was very interesting. I never thought about that. And also probably if he had a brown hoodie underneath and that was a hoodie up, if he was far away enough, she could have mistaken that for hair. I kind of see the brown bill being a little bit more possible, but it's certainly possible if he was far away enough. Yes. Okay, so that's what he's going to be doing. Awesome. Metal Mama Michelle. What a great name. I love Metal. Love the name. Gifted a mob crew membership. Thank you so much, Metal Mama. That is awesome. And Equestrian, thank you so much for becoming a member and supporting this channel. You are so awesome. And same to you, Metal Mama. I'm sorry I missed that earlier. You guys are so awesome. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Can you guys, one thing I wanted to ask, and we'll continue. Can you guys see the poll, like active even after you voted? Can you see it at the top? Just curious. It is the same hat that he was wearing in the bar that we was playing pool. There's a video out there playing pool. Was he wearing a hat? No, I think he was wearing a beanie, Nadia. I think he was. I think I have. Well, I know I have that video somewhere. But I think he had a beanie on, and not the brown cap. If we get time, we'll look at it, Nadia. Okay, we'll continue here. Okay, you guys. Okay, you can. All right, interesting. All right, we got 500 people in here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to be talking about the yellow rope. Obviously, we don't know much about it, but it's something that I've been wanting to talk about. And we're getting there. We're just kind of going through the timeline, how it unfolds that we know of. Now, Betsy Blair would have started walking back, and then sadly, Abby and Libby would have been approaching the bridge. Now, this is where we don't know exactly. We can only speculate as to whether if at the same time, after Betsy had passed the girls and they're approaching the bridge, the killer / Richard Allen, depending on where you stand, had passed them, or it's certainly possible that he continued on the bridge and went to the end. And then when the girls got to platform 6, sometime before that, he had passed them and then noticed that there was nobody coming on the bridge. And then he turned around maybe halfway, and then they saw that. And then keep in mind, for anyone that may not know, this trail, once you get to the bridge or the end of the bridge, you're basically turned back because it's a dead end. They have a big private property, no trespassing sign, because they've had issues with people breaking into things or outhouses over here, or outbuildings, wherever you want to call them. So it's safe to say that the suspect knew that this was a dead end. Even though it's not technically a dead end, it's kind of interesting. So then we would have the girls approaching the bridge. This footage here is from Steve from True Crime Web, who will be on in an hour from now. Then we get the picture at 2:09 of Libby walking the bridge. And at 2:13 is when the video starts, and we get the 1 second clip. And then the age-old question: is it a fanny pack or deer kit, whatever, or is it a hoodie? I know we've gone over this many times, but I just wanted to play this once because I've dressed up. And if you watch, just keep your eye right here. You'll notice it's got a bounce to it. And the only time I had a bounce when I dressed up and I had the fanny pack and the brown hoodie, I had, like something heavy in the coat pocket of the brown hoodie. Same thing. I had the same exact item in the fanny pack as the brown hoodie. But I noticed when I walked, the fanny pack would bounce. And you can see it. It almost bounces when he's coming back with his right foot. And he still could have had a brown hoodie underneath, but I still really think out of the two, it was a fanny pack or some kind of deer kit, whatever. Let me know if you feel differently. But it's always kind of got this round shape. If you brighten it up, you don't really see, right there, you can really see how it's rounded right here. Whereas if it was a hoodie, unless it was cut, we should be able to see some kind of, it taper across his left waist. So moving on, we have Betsy leaving. That's when she actually saw. So keep in mind, this is important too. Betsy, all the people that saw the car at the CPS building, this is something that I've been trying to get some more information on. There was 3 witnesses that saw, multiple different cars, or looked like a smart car, except for Betsy. She saw the Mercury Comet. All of those witnesses saw it when they were heading west or north, because obviously the road curves and goes north. So that factors in that clearly there's many people that came from south or east, and the only time they mention it is when they were leaving, which I thought was very interesting. So keep that in mind. But that is when she saw it. So it would have been around like 2:15 or something. So here we have the girls crossing the bridge, crossing the creek. So there'd be 2 scenarios. Either girls tried to run across the creek or they were forced across the creek. In my opinion, I think they were forced across the creek. Ran across the creek. Sorry, I was reading chat. The picture that we see here is from many years later. The creek was much fuller at that time. It was deeper. I think somewhere up to like 3 to 4 feet in some areas. Obviously, since there's like banks and stuff, just kind of depends on where you're crossing and where you're walking. But some of the deeper parts are definitely waist high. But there was something that I also was thinking about, is I wonder, because they went through this river or creek, obviously the 2 girls and the suspect would have been soaked, but the 2 girls, obviously your pants, you got Levi's on, the girls got Levi's on, your underwear, and then maybe some of your midsection, depending on how far deep you went. And this is in February, even though it was a warmer day than usual. I wonder if that changed the scenario for the suspect or killer. That were the girls like complaining once they got out of the water because it was so cold. And if it was originally an abduction, now because they're all wet and now they may be complaining, that could have changed the dynamic of the scenario in which what the killer was going to do with the victims. Just something I was kind of pondering. Let me get to chat here. I'm going to keep playing this a little bit. And then we're going to get to the rope here. It's coming up here. Watching stock to... Oh, yeah. I was going to get to that. I'm sorry. June says, in my opinion, watching stock ticker code for something else. Yeah, it'd be interesting to note, because if he claimed that he was on his phone, can they at least link him that his phone was on during that time period? We know that at that time they only had 2 towers, so we can't rely on the actual triangulation of the phone, because it's going to bounce around. We know that because it's been tested. We talked about that before. Oh, I like that. A little off key, but I like that. Good band. It's a brown button up. And that's talking about, sorry, I'm kind of catching up here. Fanny pack. There's black. What do you think was on his head? Yeah, we just talked about that. I really think it was just the brown, what they call like a driver's cap. To me, that's the closest thing. And they did recover something that they claim is a brown hat with a small bill. I'm just trying to get caught up in chat. But anyway, yeah, it'd be interesting to know if that changed the dynamic once they went in the water, because that would have been so cold. And then coming out of that. So then here, because I just kind of have some diagram of what may have happened. We know that the phone and one of Libby's shoes was found under Abby. Also, the bolt was found in between the girls. I think at some point he had asked them to derobe and may have cycled the gun again, which obviously would have ejected a bullet out, probably commanding them to maybe derobe, and then sadly he would have attacked them. Maybe they went to run, and that changed the dynamic. So here we get to the rope. So this is in here, and I'll show you guys. Let me blow this up as well. So here's the Frank's motion. Oh wait, no, that's not it. Oh, it's right there, right in front of me. So here we have number 29. It's always in the cliff notes. There's something interesting. In one crime scene photo, a yellow rope can be viewed. And just a little bit more about that. The yellow rope was tied to a tree. And I'll show you guys where I got that information, just so I just don't think I'm typing it up. So here is on the left is list of exhibits. I'm assuming this is list of exhibits when they built the Frank's motion. I think this is list of exhibits what they used to build the Frank's motion, from what I understand. DNA documentation, although we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But right here, number 28, confidential photo, yellow rope tied to a tree. So pull this back up. So in a crime scene photo, a yellow rope can be viewed. It's exhibit 28. So once again, we look at it. This is exhibit 28, confidential photo of yellow rope tied to a tree. So very interesting. I know I probably read that and then was like, oh, interesting. And then, of course, I read something else and then forgot about it. But very interesting. Obviously we don't know much more than it was tied to the tree. It's a yellow rope, but it was near the crime scene, obviously. So was it actually used? Was it there before? And then if it was brought by the killer, would that then mean this shows premeditation as well as maybe the motive of what he was going to do? Because if he brought yellow rope, he had the intention of perhaps tying up and kidnapping a victim. It's called a gill cap. I've heard it called so many things. Duckbill, yeah, duckbill hat. Oh my gosh, yeah, driver's cap. There are newsboy cap, is which mentioned back in the day. Yeah, it's got many names. Um, yeah, I'm definitely premeditated. Yeah, so obviously the one thing we don't know is if the rope was there before. Was it just a piece of rope that was tied to a tree and it just happened to be by the crime scene? Or, was it brought by the killer? And if so, is there a way that they could trace that piece of rope back to the suspect? Say you bought like 50 feet of rope and you cut, 25, you cut it in half, so you got 25 feet of rope. So could they trace, that rope to the other half? Being kind of interesting. But yeah, it was something that I've seen pop up, and then I wanted to talk about it, but there was always something else that popped up when reading the Freaks Motion. I don't, but I definitely want to set something up because I know that's a lot of fun. Maybe we will do that here soon because I know that's a place where everybody can talk and share items. I'd have to, get a hold of some mods that could help me mod it so it's, nothing inappropriate. No, that's a great statement. If it had been there long, it would have been weather worn, right? I mean, if they photographed it, I would assume, it's definitely a good possibility that this yellow rope was used. Um, but there's no mention of the girls like having any kind of lit, lit, uh, rope, like rope burn. I'm trying to think of that word, but I can't. I'm gonna mispronounce it. But of them, there's no mention of them having like any kind of bruises, being tied up. But maybe there was. They could have maybe been tied up, but it wasn't so bad that they didn't get any kind of bruising from it. But I thought it was kind of interesting that there is mention of yellow rope. And if it was brought in by the suspect, could they still somehow figure out, tie that back to the killer? Ligatures, yes. I don't know why. Then, so of course we have the F. Moving on, there's a few more things that we have. So we've gone over the F, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because, but clearly, in my opinion, I don't think it's an F. Steve has broken this down in such an amazing way. If you don't know Steve, he's former forensic. And one thing that he notices is that most of these stains are vertical. They're not horizontal. They're going down, and that's due to the gravity. And that is most likely from the victim because this is sadly Libby's blood. That she would have came in contact, probably maybe grabbing her wound, and of course having a bloody hand, she would have grabbed that tree, maybe more than once. And as you can see, it looked like there's one big vertical line, and then we have kind of a couple little ones here. But I would think if you were going to draw an F, you would just I mean, if you have a knife, why not just carve an F in? So this is one of the things I have against the the Frank's motion with them, saying this is Odinus of Vinlanders, because they mention, they'll mention Patrick and Brad, and then the connection to the crime scene, and really, and you start reading it, and I'm going to break this down more, is it always comes down to either the F, which now we've seen, and in my opinion, it does not look like somebody tried to paint an F, and they also mentioned Facebook, and it's like you'd have to be the dumbest criminal to have committed this, and then you're gonna show recreations of the crime scene in your Facebook post. I mean, that's just my opinion. You may feel differently. Um, then another thing was very interesting that we talked about, and I still have a few other things that I haven't mentioned before. But under Abby's left lower back, a shoe was found, and under the shoe, the cell phone was found, which is Libby's cell phone. And I really think it's a possibility that when they were derobing, that Libby could have, knowing that she had recorded the suspect, put that phone in her shoe, and then it kind of maybe got lost in like the leaves, and then sadly, because Abby was placed on top of it, I really think it was just kind of got hidden, just like the bullet, or the suspect would have probably destroyed it. Then we did an experiment, Steve did, as far as dragging a body, because it would be very hard to be dragging these bodies. We're not going to be talking too much about that. We've gone over that. Just the one thing I want to mention is back to the rune thing, is they mentioned the runes and the girls, and that the sticks are placed in some kind of made symbols. But in my opinion, I think the bodies were just, the sticks were placed on top to hide the bodies. And one of the people that had found the girls, David Erskine, these are leaked texts that were out from the first year, but he was questioned from another family member or friend, and he said that Libby's top half was covered with leaves and sticks, almost like they were trying to cover her. So even though we have them supposedly, a picture of them, supposedly just with the sticks on top of them, we don't know if there's other photos with them maybe partially covered with leaves. So I'm going to move on from this, and there's a couple more things. So, of course, after the homicide, the suspect then would have went north and would have walked down 300 north, and this is where Sarah at 357 would be passing by, and we would get the muddy and bloody statement, as well as our first released sketch. And this is what it would look like if he was walking, if someone was walking. So again, back to the original statement, if the suspect had parked at the old CPS building, does that show that he did not have the intention to abduct the girl? Because that would be such a trek to take them all the way back to the CPS building. I mean, we got a top head view. I wish I would measure this just to get kind of an estimate, but we can't even see the CPS building in this photograph of an overhead view. I mean, that is quite a hike to take somebody back all the way back to your car, unless there was, a second person involved and maybe had a vehicle somewhere else. But let's see. I know I put one more thing in here. Yeah, this is February Delphi. Where is it? Oh, this is where I talked about or looking at the gun, just where you could tell his placement of his arms. As you can see, his elbow is clearly bent compared to, so his right arm is clearly bent compared to his left arm, or it's not straight, but it's, kind of got the curve. But here we can totally see the bend, which means his hand is up higher and is basically like back in the day when somebody would have they'd put their finger under their shirt. I wish I could do it now, but I'd have to stand up. But, when you have your shirt, you're like, oh, I got a gun on you. You guys remember that back in the day when people would do that? It's almost like that. I think he actually has a gun, and it's protruding right here. And that is why the video is only 1 second. It's because he's going to brandish that shortly later. But yeah, here's me dressing up, and like I said, just so here you can see where I tried to make the brown hoodie. As you can see, you can still see the brown hoodie on my left side, and I tried different ways to like kind of hike it up, but you can clearly see where this is more round, and it bounces too. It's got a bounce to it, and the lighting is kind of terrible on my fanny pack there, which is a shame, but I did get the bounce when I did that compared to having the gun. Anyway. So the other thing is there is no DNA that connects Richard Allen to the crime scene, although there is DNA documentation. So it seems like they do have DNA according to the list of exhibits, but there is no DNA that connects Richard Allen. Now, the argument for the Frank's motion is, well, how could one guy not leave any DNA behind? But then they argue that possibly up to 5 people were involved in this crime, according to the defense. And to me, that issue is kind of twofold, because that's kind of the same argument. How does 5 guys not leave, DNA behind?
During our investigations, low power.
And here's a look which is really cool. Just to show you guys, just because there's been so many killers caught, and I wasn't sure how long. I didn't want to go too long because I know Steve's going on the hour. But here is some
high power
techniques that they use to see fibers, and it is really awesome. And so, and they use this to catch a guy. I think you guys have probably heard of this case.
Ultraviolet light microscopy was used to find fibers of interest.
And this is Ian. What's his name? Ian Huntley or something like that. I know it's Ian. Anyway, I'll just play the video so I can read chat. I'm sure it happened overseas in Oxford.
Of interest were recovered from tapings and other items for detailed microscopic
but this is how they caught him.
Examination and comparisons. Although these examinations might be time-consuming and hence in the regime expensive, compelling evidence was produced showing both one-way and two-way transfers of fibers between the girls, Ian Huntley, his car, and his home. As well as fibers, hairs from Ian Huntley were found on the girls' clothing from the bin at the school. The findings were presented to the...
So just his hair alone transferred multiple times to the girls' clothing and them. And let me just go back a little bit because it talks about the transfer back and forth, that his hair is transferred to their clothes and...
showing both one-way and two-way transfers of fibers between the girls.
And the fibers were transferring kind of like back to something else.
Transfers of fibers
it's crazy.
Between the girls, Ian Huntley, his car, and his home. As well as fibers, hairs from Ian Huntley were found on the girls' clothing from the bin at the school. The findings were presented to the courts in November 2003 using a novel presentation conveying the multitude of complex fibre exchanges. In December 2003, the jury found Ian Huntley guilty, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. The use of crime lights at both scene and in the laboratory greatly aided our investigations. There is no doubt that advancements in light technology and microscopy and the development of new products will have reduced the time taken to perform such examinations in modern forensic science investigations.
So this could be another, and the reason why I'm playing this could be another example, because Richard Allen had short hair. So if you guys don't know, he was in the National Guard. I'd have to pull up my other video where I had the research on it, but he was in the National Guard, and I think according to statements, and you have to kind of take this with a grain of salt, but apparently after that, he always kept his hair short from then on. And so with obviously short hair, it's less likely that he would transfer any kind of hair to the girls. So less likely for Alan to leave at least hair fiber.
Hair and fibre evidence, Ian Huntley may never have been brought to justice.
Thank you, Peter, for that fascinating insight.
Often because of the different type of fibre we're looking for, and also because of things like the dye composition. The Crime Light Auto offers a range of different light sources, all the way across the spectrum from UV.
But look at that. So this is
into the visible, including fluorescence, and even in
different light sources through the spectrum to see different fibers. And this is just amazing. I just want to play this. It's just a short little video here.
With the Crime Light Auto, it has a range of different light sources through the simple user interface. You simply click on the light source and the correct filter will move into place for you. With its integrated 20.1 megapixel camera, we are then able to capture images of fibers and provide you with high quality images. These images can be easily sent over the built-in Wi-Fi capabilities back to the lab before you've even left the crime scene. With the Crime Light Auto, we're also able to perform simple basic enhancements of your images, all of which is recorded in the metadata of the images. And because of the easy to use user interface, we are able to view everything through the screen. So there's no requirement for you or any other scene examiners to wear goggles. The Crime Light Auto has a live mode view, so you can see what's happening in real time, as well as capturing images.
But these photos are just amazing. Gosh, I didn't mean that to end like that, but I just wanted to...
Back on February.
I just wanted to show a couple of these photos that they got from this. But yeah, this one right here. I mean, that is wild. Because it's picking up a different using a different source of light, just like we would with, the universe and seeing, different galaxies and stuff like that. It's amazing that we use the same technology for getting trace evidence in hair fibers or just fibers, whatever in general. It's absolutely amazing. And how it shows up like that is just wild. This might buy you a coffee. Our exchange rate is bad. Thanks, Chris. Thank you so much, Jane Allen. Is that I'm trying to think. Can you remind me what A is? Is that I can't think of it. I can't remember if I've had one from A or not. Yeah, let me know, Jane, where you're at. Be kind of interesting. What is this, Chris? Yeah, so this was, so they found fibers. This is the Ian Huntley case with the two girls, Jessica and, Holly. Jessica and Holly. An absolutely terrible, horrible case. And they interviewed him, too. It's a pretty famous case. And I think he was like... didn't he work at the school somehow or something like that? And so he'd seen these girls walk home, and and I think he lived close by. And anyway, yeah, they even interviewed him and stuff like that. And but yeah, when they finally, were getting evidence on him, just the hair from his head transferred, like all these fibers to their clothes, and other things as well. And it's just kind of talking how easily fibers, because speaking with Steve from True Crime Web, he says that we bring DNA and stuff from our home, possibly to a crime scene. Not every time, but we have so many different hair and fibers and stuff that we touch that, just shaking a hand, we leave DNA on somebody. And even our DNA that we just shook a hand with, when it goes on that person we shook a hand with, they can shake another hand and your DNA can get on that person even though you never shook the third person's hand. Anyway, it's quite amazing how much, when it comes to forensic science, and how they catch killers. But again, it's amazing that there's really no DNA that we know of that attaches to Richard Allen. Again, it still makes me wonder if there is a second player involved, at least maybe luring these girls out there. But yeah, there's still so many unanswered questions for sure. Yeah, my tip jar is up there. I don't know if it's like accurate. I may have to do like another. We've been talking about doing a different tip jar and having people's names that have donated, since there's kind of a space up there. So we are going to be doing that. Blue fibers were collected at the crime scene. Interesting. I think that's probably why they were showing some of that stuff. Yeah, the science is super fascinating. Anyway, so we got 15 minutes because I still got to go. Let's see if there's anything on Twitter that's going on recently. No, not Twitter download. I know Delphi's been. Oh no, it's not up there now. So yeah, here's so we watched it February 13th, 2 days ago. On the 7-year anniversary. It's also mentioned in the Frank's motion, but I didn't take it that seriously because you can never know. You have to take kind of everything with a grain of salt. But they did, mention a couple times that there's no DNA, at least linking Richard Allen. Keep in mind, there's no DNA that links these 5 guys. So I think that argument is just as much according to Allen to 5 guys. You would think if more people involved, the more chances of somebody leaving some kind of forensic evidence behind at the crime scene. And if you missed the Yellow Whirlpool, I'll recap it one more time. That way, just so I can end on the hour. But yeah, we watched this. Here is this clip here.
Do you know if those fingerprints belong to the killer?
So this is interesting. Let's see. So, here, let me play it this way so you guys can hear it better. Here it is.
Do you know if those fingerprints belong to the killer?
That I do not know.
Do you know?
Okay. Sorry, this is as loud as I can get it, but it should be able to hear it. Gosh, it's so soft.
If those fingerprints belong to the killer?
That I do not know.
And same with DNA. You have DNA.
Yes.
Do you have his DNA?
Again, we don't know.
That is very interesting. So I'll play that and I'll translate it.
Do you know if those fingerprints belong to the killer?
Do you know if those fingerprints belong to the killer? So it sounds like they have fingerprints of some kind. And that was hinted in the Tobe Levinson. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Tobe. his interview with, and I can't think of his name at this moment. He did an interview. I'm sure I can find it in 2 seconds on the YouTube. He does an interview with a guy. And of course, he asks him about DNA, whether they have it. And of course, he's pretty vague with the question. But he goes to mention that, how when we touch stuff, we can, leave touch DNA. And so it's interesting that he kind of doesn't answer it directly, but then he goes on to say something about, touching stuff that we'd leave DNA. And so that's very fascinating. So she says, let me play it again.
Do you know if those fingerprints belong to the killer?
Do you know if those fingerprints belong to the killer?
That I do not know.
He says, I don't know.
And same with DNA. You have DNA.
Yes.
And she says, same with DNA. You have DNA. And he says, yes.
Do you have his DNA?
Him, we don't know.
And he says, yes, we have DNA, but... let's see, how do you answer that again?
DNA?
Him, we don't know.
Oh, she asks, is it his DNA? But he says, we don't know. Yeah, cross transfer, secondary transfer. Yeah, there's a couple of ways. Good to see you, Dandy. Tree Squirrel, great name. We love squirrels. Love your channel, Chris. Thank you so much. Let's see. Like I said, we're gonna wrap up here on the hour because if you stay here, Steve is gonna start on the hour. If you stay in this chat, it will just transfer you over to his live show. He's going to be, let's pull up his live here. For those that don't know who I'm talking about, this is Steve from True Crime Web. We've had him on so many times. Amazing guy. Former forensic detective, worked in SWAT. We've worked on quite a few cases, which is really such an honor. But yeah, and what's cool about his channel is he has, because everybody, every channel is different, and he has his thing, which is amazing, is if you have a question, any question, he'll usually go do his little thing for maybe like 30 minutes to an hour, and then he spends the next half hour or more answering literally everybody's question if you have a question. And that's truly amazing. He spends the fact that he spends time answering everybody's question is truly amazing. Yeah, I have PayPal. I don't. Donations are great. It's something that I don't usually always flaunt out, but it does help. We do go search for the missing when it's not winter time. Hoping my feet and everything get better so I can be ready for springtime because I'm kind of getting antsy. Hey Cheryl, good to see you. So yeah, I'll quickly recap just everything and go over that yellow rope if you missed it. So we got 13 minutes.
Do you know if those
Oh,
fingerprints...
not that video.
Back on February of 2017.
So anyway, just fast forward the timeline. Oh, where is it? I think it's back here a little bit. Yeah, it's right here. Or just a little bit more. There it is. So in the Frank's motion, you can see here. I'll find it again. There it is. So here's the Frank's motion, and as you can see in the crime scene photo, a yellow rope can be viewed. And then in the list of exhibits that they used to, I think, build this Frank's motion, there's number 28, confidential photo, yellow rope tied to a tree. So interesting that they did photograph and that there is some yellow rope that was tied to a tree. Whether it was there before the crime happened, if it wasn't and it was used somehow and was left behind, would be interesting. You definitely think, because is it possible they could tie that back to the killer in some way? Although there is no mention of, ligature, the girls having any kind of bruising. But it is interesting that there is the mention of a yellow rope found near the crime scene. I looked up that F that was left on the tree, and it meant a few different things. Mainly meant tree after for down rain. I can't see the F actually being there anymore. I assume you're talking about the F tree. Yeah, I mean, we have the tree. I mean, here it is. Now, we spoke to Steve about, clearly this tree would have been taken down and preserved somehow, hopefully. But it would have been taken down. That way they could get the DNA. So that tree would not be there anymore. And I've looked at, it's kind of interesting, I've looked at some video where Ron Logan is doing an interview. And it looks like there's a spot where it looked like a tree had been kind of ripped out. I don't know. I don't know if I can find that one or not. It might be this.
Who'd ever think someone would be?
Hold on. Why did that video play?
Backyard.
Right, for more than.
Well, I'm the first. I know. It's just
Pretty would turn.
it's terrible. Son, when he was in his bed all the time, he was.
Okay, it's not this one. It is, I think, this one.
This is the gate they left
Yeah,
down.
it's this one. 2 days. Okay, whoa, got to turn this down. It almost looks like, and you actually hear him say, I don't know if you ever noticed this, he actually says to her, I think this is where it happened.
After the bodies were discovered, Ron Logan showed us around his property that backs up to Deer Creek and sits at the bottom of the gorge where the Monon High Bridge towers up above, where Libby German and Abby Williams.
So I better turn that down because they might flag me.
Yeah, there's the crime scene down there. See how the ground's much more matted down.
So he's saying right here to her, he says, notice how the ground's matted down and pushed down?
Right in there. I think you're right there.
It says, I think the crime happened right there.
The search warrant from
And you see us, the same video?
were found on Logan's property. There was quite a loss of blood.
No, I think they're saying that they think this is around the area that it happened.
Investigators think the kill.
Because it's supposedly matted down right here. Anyway, I think there's over to the left. There looks like where a tree had been yanked
An
up.
item of clothing was missing from one of the girls, and quote, it also appeared the girls' bodies were moved and staged, leading investigators to theorize that the killer took a souvenir from the crime scene and maybe took pictures. It looked to investigators like the girls.
Anyway, thought I'd play that. All right, so we got 7 minutes. I appreciate everybody. Anyone's PayPal. Oh, an Amber Alert. February 14th. Karen, has that Darnell Taylor, has he been found? Sorry guys, just trying to stall for a few more minutes before Steve starts his show. Okay, I'm going to mute this if it's so loud. All right, is he still missing? This is in Ohio. So this boy, missing Ohio boy, 5 years old, what we know about suspected kidnapping and foster mother. Ohio issued an Amber Alert yesterday, for 5-year-old Darnell Taylor. Statewide, law enforcement are continuing the search today. He was taken from his home by his foster mother, Pammy May. According to the Ohio Amber Alert website, Pammy May, 48, has been charged with 1 count of kidnapping. Both charges. She remains at large, and Taylor remains missing as of Thursday morning. Here's what we know about the missing 5-year-old and the woman wanted. Do we have a picture of her? No, I don't want to get access. Where's a picture of her? Oh, there we go. Okay. Stupid ads. So that's Pammy May. That's kind of a creepy smile, I'm not going to lie. So Pammy May, would be looking for her. Oh, come over. So she has apparently abducted this poor 5-year-old boy in Ohio, which is Darnell Taylor, cute little guy, just 5 years old. So anybody, if they're near Ohio or surrounding states, just keep a lookout for these two here. That's terrible. Hopefully this is more of a custody thing, even though, was she foster mom? Okay, so she's foster. Usually, just from experience, featuring these kind of situations, usually these have a good ending, although some are bad, but usually good. So she is driving a gray 2015 Jeep Cherokee with Ohio license plate. You'd be able to see this one. Jig, Gzii. Jigsy? I guess Jigsy? So that's clearly a made license plate. Anyway. So, what do we got? 5:56. Anyway, I'm sorry, guys. Pickle Toes. We have a missing 3-year-old as well. 3-year-old missing in Texas. Do we have his name? Oh, the Lena Sadar kill. Oh, this case had an update? I know someone mentioned that earlier. 3-year-old disappearance in 2021. Yeah, I feature her on this channel. A search that began Thursday morning on the northwest side may be related to the disappearance of Lena, who was 3 years old. Sorry, I know we were looking for the missing 3 in Texas. I'm sorry, Pickle Toes. So they think... Oh,
if
God.
it's Hillshire Farm. Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, of course.
Good afternoon, I'm Jeremy Baker. We have breaking news in the case of Lena Keel, the little girl who disappeared from her Northwest Side apartment complex in 2021. San Antonio police say they are looking into a new tip regarding the investigation. There is a large police presence now behind the apartment complex on Mill Road that is very close to the complex on Fredericksburg Road, where Lena went missing. KENS 5's Zach Briggs joins us live now. Zach, what are police telling you?
Well, we're here at the Helix Apartments, just a half a mile away from where Lena Sardo-Kill went missing back in December of 2021. And behind the property here, police are in a wooded area looking around, and they're following up on a tip they received this morning regarding Lena's disappearance. This happens to be one of several tips police have followed up on since 3-year-old Lena went missing from the apartment complex off of Fredericks Road in 2021. Last seen playing outside in the apartment playground, which used to be called Villas del Cabo. And right now, police, CSI, and K-9 units are on scene, scouring around throughout a certain section of this greenway, which is taped off to the public. Now, police couldn't reveal the nature of the tip or who called it in. Police say that they investigate every tip and take them very seriously, giving regular updates to Lena's family. It's been more than 2 years of heartache for Lena's family, who've been waiting for answers from law enforcement, praying for the day when she's found. Now, here's SAPD's Ricardo Guzman from earlier this morning.
This case affected the city of San Antonio pretty heavily 2 years ago. People still talk about this case. It's still a really relative case. On the top of the SAPD Facebook page, we still have this pinned on top. Anyone with any information to please call Special Victims Unit or call the Missing Persons Unit. Anyone with any information to come forward.
All right, you're back out here live. You could see a shed that's taped up. Earlier, about, say, 40 minutes ago, police were looking into the shed, unknowing what they're searching for. But there again, there is a $250,000 reward out there. That's a combination of Crime Stoppers and community funds for any information leading to the discovery of Lena Soto killed. And again, if you happen to know anything that could help investigators, you're urged to call SAPD's Missing Persons Unit. That number is 210-206.
Okay, so we got 1 minute. Oh, it's 6 p.m. All right, so I'm going to end the show. Steve, when I end the show, it'll take you right to Steve's channel. There should be a link in the chat saying, hey, do you want to go to this channel? So if you can, he's going to be covering Delphi as well. I appreciate everybody in here. Thank you, Mod. Sorry, it was like 5:58, and then all of a sudden it's 6 p.m. So I'm going to end it there. But yeah, if you guys want to go, please go over to Steve's channel and tell him I said hi. And I love you guys so much, and we'll be back on tomorrow. And I'm going to go ahead and end it so we can